Alright, this time in the Quick Speed Shop, I'm going to show you how to put brakes on the front of your old body style Ford F250 or F350 two-wheel drive truck. We're putting on new rotors, new pads, and I'm going to show you how I do it right now. I'm a professional, don't try this at home. Okay, so the first step to remove your brakes on your old body style Ford F250, F350, we need to remove the caliper and remove the caliper bracket. And I'm changing the rotors and the pads on this, so we'll remove the spindle nut, remove the rotor, and clean this up. I'm probably clean up the dust shield here a little bit. All right, to remove the caliper brackets, remove the caliper from the bracket, I should say, there's two bolts. They're a 1/2 inch, and I'm gonna. These are your slider bolts for the caliper. Bust some loose here. There should be two of them. One on the top, one on the bottom. Now I've got those loose. I'm going to take a pry bar and I'm going to lever the caliper over just a little bit to take some pressure off the brake pads. Try to suck the pistons in a little bit by pulling against the rotor and the caliper. Here, just try to take a little bit tension off the pad, so it'll make it easier to get the caliper off. Try to get this in here somewhere like this. There, I think I released it. Yeah, there's no drag on there now, so that should come off. So we'll go ahead and we'll run our pivot bolts out. These are our slider pin bolts. They should have some kind of grease or anti-seize on them to keep them from rusting. They just had anti-seize on them. Doing this out in the driveway. It's December 31st. It's a nice day. I would work in the garage, but I got too much junk in there to work. So luckily the weather is cooperating and we can do this out in the driveway. You can do it too. It's not too bad of a job out in the driveway. So now I got the two bolts out. Let's see if we can free this caliper up. It might be a little hung up because these look a little, corroded here. A little corroded. I'm going to get a dead blow hammer, give this a couple taps just to bust this free. There we go. She was a little stuck in there. Come on now. Oh, shoot. Well, that's not very good. If it's this seized up here, that means that this brake wasn't working very efficiently. I showed what I did here to loosen this up even more. I took the bar here and I pried on the pad, which pulled the pistons in even more, and I've been wrapping it my dead blow, and I think I'm getting it where it wants to come off now. These things are really stuck on here pretty good. Here we go. All right, here we go. Whew. That's not looking good. I've got some corrosion on my piston surfaces here pretty good. You can see that. Hopefully that's not the part that I'm gonna take like a wire wheel, my drill, or try to tap some of this rust off here. Clean up them pistons. I'm gonna hang this caliper over here for now. Set it right on the radius rod there like that. Now you can see, let's get these pads out of here. See, that pad is pretty much down, worthless. It's grooved really bad and it's wore right out. This piston was, or this caliper is obviously seized up and it was dragging on the inside and doing most of the braking on the inside. And this outside pad is locked right up. Yeah, look at that one. I'm just cooked and cracked. These brakes are shot. This rotor is rusty and grooved really bad from the caliper hanging up. These stainless steel clips need to come off here. These are on your on your brake caliper bracket. These get corrosion behind them. That's why this thing's seized up, because it rusts behind here. I'm gonna have to take this and hit this with a sander, clean all these surfaces up, and then lube them some grease really well so they don't rust again. But we'll go ahead and we'll pop this bracket off. The socket required to get the caliper bracket off is 13/16. I'm gonna give this a little wrap. Hopefully this will come loose. And it's on there. There we go. There we go. Man, those bolts are on there. Alright, there's my caliper holding bracket. I'm going to take this inside. I'm going to remove these stainless steel clips. I'm going to use my file or a sander, and I'm going to clean up these surfaces. I'm going to knock all the scale off this. Try to clean these up the best I can. And I'll put them back on here. Okay, now the caliper and the bracket removed, we can remove the rotor. I've taken the dust cap off here. And we got the nut and the keeper and the cotter key and the bearings here. And get the cotter key out of the way. Bend that guy down. And the little keeper comes off the nut like that. 1 1/16 socket. We'll take the nut off. Shouldn't be very tight. There we go. Actually, I can take it off by hand. Got a little paper rag to put the parts on here so I don't get them full of dirt. Pop the nut off and then give a little tug. The outer bearing and the washer should come off. You can remove the rotor just by pulling it off. There, you'll see the inside. Oh my god, look at the inside of that rotor. That was completely shot, and I noticed it in the braking that it was pretty rough, and I can see that's pretty much junk there. It was only doing a very tiny little bit of braking. The rotor removed, we can see the spindle here. So 3/4 ton, so it's pretty large. I'm going to remove this extra grease off here because dirt's going to stick into it. I'm going to clean this all up really nice. Now you don't have to remove the dust shield to do the brakes, but I am also changing out the ball joints in this truck while I got the brakes off it. So I'm going to take this off and I'm going to clean it up the best I can. Get some of the loose scale off here. There's little 5/16 bolts. There's 3 of them, I think. 3 of them that I can remove the dust shield and get me down to the spindle. But for the sake of just putting brakes on a vehicle, you don't need to do that step. So I'll clean this all up and I'll come back and we'll reassemble the new rotors, repack the wheel bearings, and put new pads on the front of this truck and get it back stopping like it should. Alright, well, it got too dark to finish the brake job outside tonight, so I'm going to get the rotor, well, one of the rotors ready because I only got 1/2 apart. I'm using Bendix Fleet MetLok. These are severe duty rotors because I do a lot of towing with this truck, and it also drives in the winter. So I bought these in Rock Auto. They're pretty expensive. I think they're over $100, close to $100 a piece, but they're supposed to be good quality rotors, and they're all coated and painted, so maybe they won't rust as bad. Man, that's a monster. Check that out, brand new rotor. So what we're going to do now to prepare this is I've got to take and put the rear wheel bearing in this first, and I've got a new wheel seal to go in it. I also bought the Bendix Fleet MetLok pads. These are premium severe duty pads here. I've got my new wheel seals. This will hold in the grease for the rear bearing. Came with some new stainless steel sliders for the calipers right there. And these are really nice. Looks like they've got brass or something impregnated in them, but they're severe duty. They're supposed to be quiet. They got this nice plastic on there so they won't rattle on the calipers. So that's what we're going to be using there. Okay, I took my rear wheel bearing and I re-greased it with some wheel bearing grease here, coastal wheel bearing grease. Just ran it around my hands. And now I'm going to put the wheel seal into the rotor here. And I don't really have a seal driver big enough to tap this, so I'm going to try to do it the way you're not supposed to do it, by tapping around on the edges. Oh, perfect. Yes. Now, there we go. Just going to drive her down in there. Right till it's flush. There we go. Got the wheel seal installed. Got my new, got my bearing all re-greased. We'll go out and we'll reinstall this new rotor onto the spindle. We'll tighten it down, and then I've cranked the pistons back in the caliper. Used a C-clamp and a brake pad. Drove those back. I've painted everything so we can put the rotor on, put the caliper bracket back on, put the new pads into the caliper, and then should be able to finish this brake job up. So I've put some grease on my spindle. I got the bearing installed on the back of the rotor here. And grasp the rotor. I'm just going to place it up on here. Like that. Here we go. You can see I also painted the suspension while I was at it, just to clean it up a little bit. I've repacked the front bearing. Get off there. Here with new grease. I'm going to stick that right in here. Get on there. I know you came out of there. There we go. Okay. Right in there like that. Take our washer and we'll reinstall that. Take our spindle nut. Get this guy going back on here. Now the secret to the spindle nut is you tighten it down fairly snug to seat the bearings. Like that. Uh-oh. Dust shield is dragging. There we go. Spin this around to seat the bearings a few times. And then you take your retaining piece, and after you snug your bearing up just a little bit, you back the nut off just one little touch to make sure it's not too tight, and then you line this retainer up there. You usually want to use a new cotter key. Unfortunately, I don't have any right now, so I'm going to have to temporarily put this one back in until I can get some new ones. But you usually want to not reuse your cotter key. But I failed to procure any, so I'm going to jam this guy back in here for temporary. Bend it back around there. Perfect. I'm going to take just a little bit more grease and just jam it in tight to the bearing here. Give the bearing some extra action. Like that. Now I can replace the bearing cap. There we go, got the bearing cap on there. And we should have nice, good bearing action. Now I'm going to get the caliper bracket. You can see that I've painted everything. I cleaned up all my surfaces. I knocked the scale off and I used a wire wheel. I wired up the bracket, the caliper. I cranked the pistons back in with a C-clamp. So we're ready to reinstall everything. Our Bendix Fleet Lock pads came with some new stainless steel slider clips. When I painted the bracket, I took a hand file and I filed all the rust off these surfaces where the stainless steel clips go. Now I'm going to take some grease and put it on the surface here where the slider clips go. I'm just going to put some on there so this is less likely to rust in the future. You don't want to get it on too much because you don't want it getting on the brakes, but I think that the stainless steel clips have been put on there bare before and they rusted underneath them. That's why the brakes are seized up on this side. Then we'll install the stainless steel clips. The short side of the clip, there's a long side and a short side. The short side goes near the bolt. Like so. The short side goes near where the caliper bolts on. I'm also going to put a little bit of grease on the stainless steel side, just where the brake pads go. Just a little bit. Just lube it up nicely, not a heavy coating. Okay, so I'm going to put the pads in here. I'm going to take a little bit of grease and just put it here where the pads go into them stainless steel clips. Just a little bit, not too much. Just a little bit. There, I've already put the back pad in. So I got grease everywhere again. Hold on one second. So these pads just go and they sit right on these stainless steel little clips like this. They slide right in here. Like so. Bam. Now we got our fancy Bendix pads on here. Now I should be able to take the caliper and swing it right back into location. I've also painted this. I put a little bit of grease on where it goes, on the pivot points, so hopefully it should just squeeze right back into place here. My sliders, I pulled my slider pins out and I lubed them up, and I had them slid over too far. I couldn't get in it. Let's try that. Oh, that's better. Perfect. Alright, I set that on there. I put a little grease on my slider pin bolts. Alright, so that's it. I got the brakes installed. I just got to tighten down my slider pins. It's just that easy. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the other side of the truck and get my new brakes going. This is very important before you drive the vehicle, because you push the pistons all the way back in with the C-clamp. The pistons need to be driven back out, so you want to press the brake pedal probably 5 or 6 times to get the brakes seated before you drive the vehicle, because if you set it down and jump in and put it in gear, you're not going to have any brakes the first time you step on the brake pedal. So you definitely want to pump it up to get it going there. But we've got brand new brakes on our F250 here. Like I said in the beginning of the video, this applies to the F250 and the F350 with the two-wheel drive brakes, the old body style 92 to 97 trucks. And I'll should get some really good life out of these Bendix Fleet MetLok rotors and pads. They should last a long time. They should be corrosion resistant. And we got new seals, repacked the bearings, new pads, cleaned everything up, new sliding surfaces, new rotors, and this thing should be ready to go. So I hope that helps you out putting brakes on your old body style truck. I'm doing some tutorials like this. I also do hot rod builds and some other builds like this truck here, this 95 Ford F250. I rebuilt the whole thing. And if that interests you, make sure you check out some of the other videos. And as always, I'll see you right here at the Quick Speed Shop.